Okay, so we're back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
And today we're looking into some
Huge.
huge developments in the case against Sean Diddy Combs.
Yeah, this is a big one.
Yeah, so we have this news report that just came out on April 5th, 2025,
Right.
and it details a newly unsealed superseding grand jury indictment.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
that sounds really serious.
it is.
So let's get right into it
Yeah.
and try to break down exactly what this all means for our listeners.
Oh, sure.
So what is a superseding grand jury indictment?
Okay, so basically a superseding grand jury indictment means
Okay.
that the prosecution has presented new evidence to the grand jury, and that evidence has resulted in this updated or expanded set of charges.
Because what is it against the defendant?
What is it exactly that they are adding with this indictment?
Yeah. So in this particular case,
Okay.
the superseding indictment introduces two brand new federal charges against Diddy,
Okay.
one count of sex trafficking,
Wow.
and one count of transporting a person across state lines with the intent to engage in prostitution. Oh, wow. Okay, so those are really serious charges.
Extremely serious.
And these new charges involve someone identified as victim 2.
Right? Yeah, that's
So-
right. Victim 2 is how they're referring to the individual.
So, if Combs ends up being convicted on these new charges,
Yeah.
how would that impact his potential sentence? The report mentions he's 55 years old.
Well, sex trafficking charges, especially at the federal level, they carry some really, really hefty penalties.
Right.
So if he's convicted on these new counts,
Yeah.
it could add a significant amount of time
Wow.
to any potential prison sentence.
So this is all happening, in the context of these much broader accusations that have been swirling around Diddy for a while now.
Right.
It's not just about these two new charges. Right?
No, exactly. You have to remember that these new charges are just one piece of a much larger and more complex puzzle.
Right.
Diddy has been facing all these accusations of basically orchestrating a network of sexual abuse. And it goes beyond that. There are also these claims about how he treated his employees.
Right.
Allegations of forcing people into these drug-fueled sexual encounters.
Yeah, I remember reading about that.
Using threats and violence to coerce them.
Right. It's really disturbing stuff.
It is.
And there are also those claims from former employees about excessive working hours and pressure to stay silent about anything they might have witnessed.
Right, absolutely.
And Diddy has consistently denied all of these allegations, right?
Yes, he has consistently maintained that any sexual activity was consensual and that he did nothing wrong.
So that's going to be a key point of contention as this case moves forward.
For sure, that's going to be at the heart of the legal battle ahead.
So speaking of moving forward, what's next in terms of the legal timeline? What kind of court dates can we expect to see in the near future?
Well, there's a really important date coming up very soon, April 25th, 2025.
Okay.
On that day, prosecutors want Combs to appear in court to be formally arraigned on these new charges.
Okay, so that's the arraignment for the new charges.
Right. And what makes that date even more significant is that it was already the date set for the final pretrial conference in the case.
Oh, wow. So they're going to tackle both things on the same day.
Exactly. So it's a crucial point in the timeline because it's where these new charges are going to be addressed.
Right before the trial starts.
Exactly, right before the trial begins.
And when does the trial itself actually start?
So the trial is currently scheduled to begin in May, with jury selection starting on May 5th.
Okay.
And then opening statements from both the prosecution and the defense are expected to start a week later on May 12th.
So that's going to be a busy couple of weeks in May.
Absolutely. And, the report also mentions that this trial is expected to get a lot of public attention.
Yeah, that seems like a given with someone as high profile as Diddy and with the serious nature of these allegations.
Oh, for sure. This is a huge case, and it's going to be all over the news.
So let's step back for a second and look at how all of this started. What were the events that first put this whole situation in the spotlight?
Right. So the report points out that this really started to blow up in late 2023 when the singer Cassie filed a lawsuit against Diddy.
Right.
Her legal name is Cassandra Ventura,
Right.
and her lawsuit was really detailed and contained some disturbing allegations against Diddy.
Yeah.
She claimed years of abuse spanning a decade, including physical abuse, being coerced into sexual activity while under the influence of drugs, and even a specific incident of rape that allegedly happened in 2018.
Yeah, it was a really shocking and upsetting story when it first came out.
It was.
And while that lawsuit was settled out of court, it seemed to open the floodgates.
You could say that.
It led to a whole bunch of other civil lawsuits against Diddy.
Yeah, it definitely seemed to give other people the courage to come forward with their own stories.
So on top of these federal charges, Diddy is also dealing with all these civil lawsuits.
That's right. He's facing legal battles on multiple fronts.
And these other lawsuits generally make similar accusations to what we've been talking about,
Yeah, for the most part, they paint a picture of a pattern of abuse and misconduct that was allegedly going on.
with help from people in Diddy's inner circle.
Exactly. They claim that this wasn't just Diddy acting alone, but that he had a system of enablers around him.
So the report also mentions that Diddy has been in custody since September of last year.
Yes, that's right.
And there haven't been a lot of major updates in the case until this new indictment dropped.
Yeah, things have been relatively quiet for a while.
The report also mentions that he's looking visibly aged with a graying beard and salt and pepper hair.
Yeah, it sounds like this whole ordeal has really taken a toll on him.
Okay, so let's wrap up by making sure our listeners have all the key takeaways from this report.
Sounds good.
So first off, Sean Diddy Combs is now facing these new federal charges of sex trafficking and transporting an individual for the purpose of prostitution.
Right.
These new allegations involve someone identified only as victim 2.
Oh.
These charges come on top of all those existing accusations
Yep.
of a much broader pattern of abuse and misconduct.
Right.
He's scheduled to be arraigned on these new charges on April 25th, which is also the day of his final pretrial conference.
Exactly.
And then the trial itself is set to begin in early May with jury selection.
Correct.
And remember, all of this follows a whole wave of civil lawsuits that were filed after those initial allegations from Cassie came out back in late 2023.
That's right.
So as you can see, this is a really complex case with a lot of moving parts.
It is.
And it raises some important questions about power dynamics in the entertainment industry and about holding people accountable for their actions.
Yeah, for sure. And the outcome of this case could have a big impact on how these kinds of situations are handled in the future.
Absolutely. All right, so that wraps up our deep dive into the latest developments in the Sean Diddy Combs case.
Until next time,
Stay tuned and we'll keep you updated as things unfold.
we will.